The smell of burnt cedar drifted through the cracked window, mingling with motor oil and whatever leftover Chinese Elise had microwaved at 1 a.m. I lay under a 2005 Tacoma with the differential open like a broken jaw, grease curling beneath my nails, but my head wasn't in the shop. It was upstairs, one floor above the bay, in the tiny studio apartment we'd shared for the last 7 months. I heard her laugh earlier, real and sudden, when I came back from O'Reilly's with the wrong air filter. Again, it's not that I don't try, but all those numbers and letters twist like snakes in my head. She doesn't know about the dyslexia. I've never told anyone except Mr. Muir back in high school shop class, and that was because I set a carburetor diagram on fire out of frustration. Jay? Elise's voice floated down the iron staircase. You want coffee? Or, like, that brown sludge you pretend is coffee? I wiped my palms on my Carhartts. If you're offering, I ain't above sludge. She appeared at the top of the stairs, wild hair tied up in a paint-speckled scrunchie, her paint-smeared coveralls zipped halfway down to a gray Bozeman Hawks tee. That shirt used to be mine. From ninth grade. I watched her come down barefoot, toes painted this chipped copper color, and I hated how well I could remember painting those toes once during a thunderstorm blackout, both of us a little drunk on gas station wine. That was last December, before her eggs, Ben with the V-neck sweaters and Bluetooth headset, dumped her at a brewery trivia night in front of half our town. She handed me a chipped mug with "World's Okayest Roommate" written in Sharpie. It'd been a gag gift, but now it just felt like a cruel sort of badge. Got any jobs lined up today? She asked, hopping up to sit on the workbench next to my grease tray. Nah, just this old taco. I tapped the axle. Wants to die, but the owner won't let it. Sounds like me. I laughed, short and sharp. She laughed too, but her eyes didn't lift with it. The truth was, she was hurting. Still. I saw it in the way she picked at her food, the way she didn't paint for weeks, the way she played the same playlist over and over. Bon Iver, Phoebe Bridgers, that one damn Wilco song that always made her cry quietly in the bathroom. I wanted to ask if she was okay, but I also didn't want to be the guy who poked the bruise. So instead I talked torque specs. I can't find the right socket for the front caliper, I said. Might be another size thing. She leaned in, took the socket from my hand, tested it. Try 17mm. I smiled. You're better at this than me. I've been watching you since we were 10, she said, hopping off the bench. Kinda hard not to absorb something. My heart stuttered at that. Watching me? Since we were kids. Before I could reply, she swiped her phone off the bench. Gotta head to the mural site. That bakery on College Street wants something fall but not too pumpkin spice, whatever the hell that means. Oh, need a ride? I asked. She shook her head. I'm walking. Air's finally clearing up. She left with the mug still in her hand. Later that night, just after 2 a.m., my phone buzzed. Not a text. A voice memo. I blinked at the screen. Elise. I listened. God, I miss you, and you're right here, and it's pathetic. You don't even know. You never. The recording cut off. I sat up in bed, air thick with late summer smoke. The mug sat on my nightstand, lip chipped, coffee stain dried in a crescent moon. I didn't know what to do. Or maybe I did, but I didn't trust myself to believe it. So I did what I always do when things feel too big. I rolled over and pretended the world could wait until morning. But morning in Montana waits for no one. And neither, I was starting to realize, does Elise. The next morning, Elise acted like nothing happened. She was in the kitchen making oatmeal the way she always did, over the stovetop, with almond milk and too much cinnamon. The voice memo sat on my phone like a splinter I couldn't dig out. I hadn't responded, hadn't even hinted I'd heard it, and now the silence between us had a shape. I'll wait. Want some? She asked, holding out a mismatched bowl. Sure. My voice cracked, sleep still clinging to it, or maybe something heavier. The spoon clinked against the ceramic. I stared at the oatmeal like it had secrets. We ate in silence. The wildfire smoke had thinned but still hung faintly in the air, turning the kitchen window amber. Outside, a squirrel knocked over the flower pot I kept forgetting to replant. Inside, the silence stretched taut like a brake line under pressure. I finally said, "You sent me something last night." Elise froze, mid-bite. "Did I?" A voice, "Memo." Her spoon dropped into the bowl. She looked like I'd slapped her. "I didn't mean to." I nodded. "I figured." She opened her mouth, then shut it. She pushed the oatmeal away. "Forget it, Jay. Seriously. But how do you forget something like that? Something that hung in the air like smoke, invisible and thick." I stood up, muscles stiff. "I'm heading to the garage. Got a Jeep coming in at 10. You gonna pretend I didn't say it?" she asked, voice quiet. I looked at her, really looked. Paint still on her elbows from the mural. That scar on her jaw from falling off her bike when we were 11. Her fingers curled around the chipped edge of the world's okayest roommate mug, holding it like a shield. "I don't know what you want me to do," I said honestly. "You tell me." She stared at me, eyes dark and searching. Then, just like that, she dropped it. "Don't worry about it." And I didn't. Not for days. I buried myself in brake pads, busted radiators, and late-night convenience store runs. I watched football with the guys from the shop, drank too many Coors, and avoided coming home before she fell asleep. One night, 4 days after the voice memo, I found her passed out on the couch with her sketchpad open on her chest. The TV buzzed low, static snow over a paused Netflix screen. The sketch was of us, me and her, sitting on the roof of the apartment, legs dangling over the edge. It was drawn from behind, but I knew it was us. I could tell from the way her shoulder tilted into mine. The mug was in the sketch too, sitting between us. I traced it with a finger. Something broke open in my chest, warm and aching. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I sat in the garage with the radio turned low, hands wrapped around that damn mug, thinking about every time I'd nearly told her. There was the time in high school when she kissed a guy from the marching band behind the bleachers, and I drank 2 cans of warm Sprite just to have an excuse to walk away. The time she fell asleep on my shoulder during the Royal Tenenbaums, and I didn't move for 2 hours because I was afraid she'd pull away. The night she came home crying after Ben posted that passive-aggressive breakup on Instagram, and I just held her hand and said nothing. I had chances. I just never took them. That weekend, the bakery unveiled her mural. Golden aspens, blue jays, a kid holding a kite that looked suspiciously like one from our childhood. She looked happy in the photos, but when we got home, she stood in the doorway of her bedroom and said, "You ever think we missed it?" Missed what? The moment, whatever that means. I wanted to tell her no, that we were still in the moment, maybe always had been. But all I said was, maybe. She nodded, turned out the light. I sat on the couch for a long time, holding the mug, tracing the chipped edge with my thumb. That night, I had a dream we were on the roof again, her hair full of autumn leaves. I reached for her hand, but it turned into smoke. When I woke up, she was gone. Her bed was made, the mural paints were gone, and a note sat on the kitchen counter. "Gone to Helena for a few days. Need space, don't text." But she left the mug. Always the mug. No texts. No updates. Just silence so total it roared. The first frost came early that year. By October, the peaks of the Bridgers were already powdered white. I spent most days working overtime at the garage just to keep my mind quiet. Didn't work. The silence followed me home, echoing in the chipped mug sitting on the windowsill, in the faded paint streak on the couch cushion where she used to sit cross-legged and barefoot, eating dried mango and judging the hell out of Jeopardy contestants. I tried going out. Dated once briefly. A girl from a parts supplier in Butte. She laughed a lot, talked fast, had purple nails that clicked against her iced coffee. But all I could think about was how her laugh didn't rise in waves the way Elise's did. And she didn't say, "Ope," when she dropped her keys or smirk when someone mispronounced Gallatin. We lasted exactly 2.5 dates. The third time I bailed, she texted, "You're in love with someone else, huh?" I didn't reply. What was the point? The mornings got colder. I started sleeping in hoodies. The mug moved from the window to the nightstand. I drank from it even when it was chipped enough to cut my lip. And then one morning, she came back. I was elbow deep in an old Volvo when I heard the bell on the garage door jingle. I wiped my hands and looked up. There she was. Elise. Hair longer. Thinner somehow, but with eyes clearer than I'd seen in months. She was wearing a dark denim jacket and holding a canvas rolled under her arm. "Hey," she said, like she hadn't disappeared. I didn't say anything at first. I just stared. She looked around. "You ever gonna fix that radio?" "It works fine. It just hums sometimes." "Near him away." She nodded, like that was all the explanation she needed. Like she'd never left. "You left," I finally said. "I know." Without a word. There was a note. I laughed, sharp and bitter. "You left a note next to a mug. Elise. That's not communication. That's abandonment with bad stationery." She flinched. I needed space. "So you disappear for 6 weeks and waltz back in like nothing?" I didn't know how to stay, Jay. Not after that message. I crossed my arms. "Why send it if you didn't want to talk about it?" "I didn't mean to send it, remember?" But it was true. She looked down. Yeah, it was. Silence stretched again, but it felt different now, charged instead of empty. I wanted to shake her. I wanted to pull her into my arms and scream into her collarbone. Instead, I asked, "Why are you here now?" She held out the canvas. "This is for you." I hesitated before taking it. I unrolled it slowly. It was the same rooftop scene she'd sketched that night, but painted, now, in full color. Us from behind, sure, but her hand was in mine. The mug sat between our feet. In the background, the sky glowed with brushstrokes of smoke and gold. She'd added stars. "It's called what I should have said," she said. I held the painting. I didn't know what to say. "I went to Helena," she continued, "because I couldn't stay here and pretend I didn't feel everything all the time. I've loved you since before I knew what that meant. And I hated myself for loving you after everything with Ben. I hated that I compared him to you and he always lost. I hated that I was afraid to tell you. I hated that you never told me either." "What's wrong?" I blinked. "What?" "Don't play dumb." "I'm not. You've always loved me, Jay. But you never said it, and I didn't either, and we just existed. In this weird, safe limbo where everything hurt and nothing moved." "Wah wah." She was crying now, but not sobbing. Just quiet tears that caught the light. "I'm not asking you for anything," she said. "I just needed you to see it. The truth. I needed you to have it before I left for good." I stepped forward. "You're leaving again?" She nodded. "I got a grant. For a mural residency in Austin. 3 months. Starts in November." "Oh, really?" A pause. "Is this a goodbye?" "It can be." I looked at the painting again. My hands were shaking. My throat tight. "Elise," I said, "do I have to lose you to love you out loud?" She didn't answer. Just took one last look around the garage, then turned and walked out, boots echoing against concrete. And I didn't follow. Not yet. Austin was louder than Bozeman. Hotter, too. In December, when Montana was sleeping under a sheet of snow, Austin pulsed with music and late-night tacos and murals that bloomed on buildings like Technicolor Confessions. I'd never been. Never planned to. But 2 months of silence does something to a man, especially when he stares at a painting every night that feels more like a mirror than art. She hadn't called. I hadn't either. I told myself I was respecting her space, letting her have her time. But if I was honest, and God, I was sick of lying to myself, it was cowardice. The same cowardice that kept me quiet all those years. The same fear that Elise had finally called out and walked away from. So I booked a one-way ticket. I told the shop I needed time off, left Rico in charge, packed one duffel, and brought the damn mug with me. When I got to the address from her website, it was already dusk. The building was long and low, concrete and steel, with murals exploding across every inch, dragons wrapped around astronauts, Dia de los Muertos skeletons dancing with trumpet players, words in script so elegant I didn't even try to read them. I found her on a scissor lift, 20 feet up, filling in a section of sky with cobalt blue. She wore a tank top streaked with paint, and her shoulders were sun-freckled. Her hair was longer, tied in a knot with a brush stuck through it like a chopstick. I watched for a minute, heart loud in my chest. She didn't see me at first. Not until she climbed down, wiped her forehead, and turned. Her eyes widened. Jay? I held up the mug. You forgot this. She stared. You came to Texas for a coffee cup. No, I said. I came because you were right, about everything. I walked toward her, gravel crunching under my boots. You said we lived in limbo. You were right, and I hated it. But I was scared that if I said it out loud, I'd ruin what we had. You already did. Her voice was soft, not cruel, just tired. I know. I took another step. But I can't keep pretending I don't feel everything all the time either. I love you. I probably always have. And it took losing you, really losing you, to finally say it. She didn't speak, just watched me. This mug, I said, holding it up, sat in every room I couldn't say things in. It was with me when you left, when I almost told you, when I didn't. I laughed once. I know it's just a stupid piece of ceramic, but I started thinking maybe it was a stand-in for everything I never said. She exhaled, slow. Jay, I'm scared too. Yeah? Yeah. I thought if I left, it would stop hurting. But it didn't. Every color I painted out here, I thought of you. Every shadow I blended. Every blank wall. I kept seeing us on that rooftop, wondering if you were thinking about it too. Or, hey, I was, I said. I am. She took the mug from my hands, turned it over, thumb tracing the chip. You didn't even fix it. I tried. But then it wouldn't be the same. I guess I got used to holding it like that. Careful, but still close. She looked up at me then. You still talk like a mechanic who writes poetry on oil-stained napkins. I still am, I said, just finally ready to write it down. She laughed. And this time, it wasn't forced or cautious. It was her laugh. The one I'd missed for 2 months of unbearable silence. Then, without another word, she stepped forward and kissed me. Not cautious. Not testing the waters. Not half-drunk or hurt. Just her, full and warm and real, tasting like sweat and lemon LaCroix and paint fumes. When we pulled apart, her forehead rested on mine. You always smelled like Bozeman, she whispered. Even here, it's like I carried it with me. I'm sorry I didn't say it before. I'm sorry I waited so long to leave. We sat on the gravel, her head on my shoulder, mug between us like always. But this time, we didn't leave anything unsaid. That night, we stayed up until 3 on the porch of her rented studio, talking about everything. Our favorite childhood lies, the time she almost left for art school in Portland. The real reason I never tried to read her letters in high school. The mug sat between us. Chipped, may, ugly, familiar, child and I. Ours. 6 months later, Elise was back in Bozeman. We talked about it in Austin, over greasy brisket tacos and long night drives with the windows down and the mug tucked in the glove box like a traveling relic. She missed the mountains, she said. The cold that bit your lungs clean. The way the stars in Montana made the sky feel less lonely. So she moved back in April. The thaw had just begun, drips echoing off gutters, robins flashing red across melting yards, everything raw and waking up. She didn't move back into the apartment above the garage, though. That place held too many old ghosts and unsaid things. Instead, she rented a loft over the old hardware store off Main, the one they turned into an artist co-op. She painted the walls a warm ochre and hung string lights across the beams. Her new studio smelled like linseed oil, citrus, and the quiet buzz of good beginnings. We were together now. Official. Real. One way. The town didn't blink an eye. Maybe they'd always known. But love, I was learning, isn't a light switch. You don't just flip it on and expect the wiring to be perfect. Some nights, Elise curled into herself like she was bracing for loss. Other nights, I said things wrong, rushed or quiet or not at all, and watched the color drain from her eyes like paint left out in the sun. One night in early May, she found the mug cracked clean in half. I'd knocked it off the workbench by accident. It landed on the concrete floor and split like a wishbone. I looked at the two halves in my hand, heart stalling. She stood in the doorway of the garage, barefoot in cut-off sweats and one of my old hoodies. Her eyes softened when she saw the pieces. Finally broke, I said, voice tight. She walked over, took one half gently from my hand. It was bound to, she said. It was already broken, just didn't know it yet. We didn't fix it. We buried it. Literally. Next morning, we took a drive out past Hyalite, into the foothills where the pines started to thicken and the meltwater creeks ran fat and fast. We hiked to a flat clearing we used to sneak off to as kids. We dug a shallow hole, laid the two ceramic pieces inside like bones, and covered them with damp pine needles and loose earth. I brought a Sharpie. We wrote on a flat rock. World's okayest roommates, retired. Elise laughed when we placed it over the grave. A real laugh, wet at the edges. It's silly, I said, wiping my palms on my jeans. It's perfect, she replied. We don't need it anymore. And she was right. We were no longer pretending. No longer orbiting each other in safe patterns. We were in it. We were in it. The late night fights about nothing. The sleepy forehead kisses at stoplights. The slow dance in the kitchen to a record that skipped every 10 seconds. We were messier now, but more honest. One evening in June, she showed me her new mural sketch. It was massive, planned for the east-facing wall of the town library. A swirl of blues and greens, shadowy figures holding hands across rooftops, stars flickering between them like Morse code. In the center, two people sat on a roof, their backs to the viewer. A coffee mug between them. You really putting that up for the whole town to see? I asked. She grinned. I thought I might. I studied the sketch. We don't sit like that anymore. She leaned into me, ink on her fingers. No, now we face each other. I kissed her, ink and all. And in that moment I didn't feel bitter or scared or like I had to hold anything back. I just felt there with her. Summer settled over Bozeman in long shadows and early sunrises. I still worked at the garage. Elise painted most days, taught some classes at the co-op on Sundays. We didn't talk much about the months apart, or the old silences. But sometimes, when we were lying in bed, her head on my chest and the ceiling fan whispering overhead, she'd trace her finger over the scar on my hand from that first fall we shared the garage. You ever miss it? She asked once. What? Before. When we didn't say things. No, I thought about it. No, I said. But I remember it. I remember who we were when we didn't know better. She nodded against my chest. Me too. And that was enough. Because sometimes love doesn't come in fireworks. Sometimes it comes in oil-stained jeans, quiet porch lights, and a buried mug in the woods. And sometimes it sticks around, even after the last chip falls off,